right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fist-Dented Christians. I am Dustin, and I have DJ here with me as always.
Welcome back.
In the feeling shed on a
Kind of a rainy.
yeah, but we need it. So
We do. It's very, very nice.
Yep. So it's a little sticky.
Did you notice my new rug?
Yes, I did. Well, I noticed that, and the chair you brought out, and
Did you see the new couch in the house?
mm-mm.
Oh, you have to take a look at that for you.
Okay. Yeah. So
just sitting in the feeling shed,
Yep.
and some of our best conversations happen before we press play
Yep.
or press record.
you know.
But we were talking, and welcome everybody to another episode, and tell us about your situation at your new job and what kind of, because I think that's good for people to hear.
Yeah, so I started a new job. I just finished my 4th week, so a month. And the company is great. Like, they have a formal onboarding training process for me. So it's not just, here's some work, butthead, good luck. Like, it is, like, well thought out. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it sounds
And-
structured and strategic.
Yeah, and my team lead Zach and my boss Nate are really good. They're patient. They're willing to answer questions. They own their own stuff. Like it's. I was telling DJ ahead of time. I'm content and happy at work, and that's a weird feeling.
And folks, you can't see him, but he looks pretty happy too.
Yep. So yeah.
What
like-
does this mean?
Right. I have no idea. No idea
This
what
is
to
a
do.
new feeling for me.
Yep. No idea what to do with it. Didn't know it existed.
Well, talk about kind of how our old thoughts kind of trickle in as it relates to its work situation.
Yeah,
that you went
so
through. Was that
I-
this week?
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday. So, at the previous jobs I've had, so I've had a mix of office jobs and warehouse jobs. Warehouse jobs, anybody can do them. I'm fine with those. But the office jobs in supply chain have caused me a lot of stress and anxiety because the companies I worked at were toxic, and I'm still new to supply chain. And so these other companies, something would go wrong and I get blamed, and then there's no like, hey, let's talk about how you missed this and let's try and fix it for the next time. It was just like, nah, you have to do better, you fucking moron. And so I had a situation at work this past week, Monday or Tuesday, where we're in a meeting and it's my boss Nate and then the 5 or 6 guys that he leads. And he's like, hey, do all you guys know how to do blah, 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 this certain process? And everybody's kind of like, yeah, we know how. And in my head, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know how, but maybe I did something wrong. But I just said, yeah, I know how to do that. And Nate's like, okay, well, I asked because somebody in this room doesn't know how to do it.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yep. And I'm just like, well,
That's me.
yep, here it is. I'm trying to be more confident and I'm trying not to have anxiety. And here's a situation where he asks, and I'm pretty sure, very sure that I know what I'm doing. And then he points out that somebody in the room doesn't.
Yeah, I'm
And
shamed.
Yeah, and of course it's me because everybody else has been there for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
You've only been there for a month.
yeah, I'm just like, damn it. Now I'm going to get called out and I'm going to feel like a moron. And then, so all of those thoughts happen in a second and a half. And like,
Do you get that feeling in that goes through your body?
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, so like, cut back to the real world, and Nate's like, somebody in this room doesn't know what they're doing or doesn't know how to do it, and that person is me. And he points to himself. And I was like, oh, like I'm not being called out. I'm doing something right. And not only that, but now I have a manager who's willing to, in front of his team, admit that he didn't know how to do something. And then he said, since I didn't know how to do it, I just want to make sure that you guys know how to do it, because you do this procedure 98% of the time. I only do it 2%. So I just want to make sure that you guys are comfortable with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm just like, that's a really good manager. Like, he's willing to admit that he did something wrong, and then his first thought was, I need to make sure my team knows what they're doing so they have the support they need.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh my God.
So you felt relieved.
Oh yeah, there was just like a minute or two where I'm like, all right, this is awesome. Like, okay, we can survive another day.
Wow.
Yep.
And so when the meeting was over, you're still feeling pretty good.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, you needed that.
Yeah.
You needed that build up.
Excuse me. Yeah. So it is.
How long did it last?
Excuse me. What, the feeling?
Yeah, until you started kind of thinking, you're going back to your.
Oh, probably at least a couple hours.
Okay, good.
Which is really odd because normally it's just minute by minute anxiety, and so to have like a couple hours where I just like sat back at my desk and I had a task to do that I knew how to do, so I'm just like, I know what I'm doing. I just had a meeting where I wasn't called out. My manager's supportive.
That's so cool.
Yeah, like it is.
It feels weird, doesn't it, when things go
super
right?
Weird. Super weird. Like
And there's other things in your life that are going pretty good right now too.
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, and we were talking everybody about the idea of what do you do when things start to turn around for you?
Right.
Because you're so used to, drowning or being depressed or having mental health issues that consumes you so much to the degree that if something good happens, maybe you don't feel like is this even real? Like,
Right.
This is strange.
Right.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
We get used to kind of sitting in this, in our own crap.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And it becomes familiar. It becomes normal. And sometimes it becomes actually the pain and the anguish and the stuff becomes kind of comfortable because we're so used to it.
Right.
What do I do now if things are like, if I get a raise or if I'm doing good at my work, now what? Like,
right. Yeah.
it's gonna actually, that means I have to, it's kind of maybe a little scary because that means, okay, well now I'm away from my home of anguish and depression.
Yeah.
But that's what feels familiar. So, but now I'm here kind of out in no man's land. Like, what
Right.
does this mean?
Yeah. It's a whole new world to navigate.
It is.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier too that you've been busy every day this week, not only with work but like stuff after work.
Yeah. Yeah. So that.
Hey, did you see your roommate's got the? You posted that, right?
Yes.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been grinding for a long time. So for people that don't know, just as an aside, I live with my friends Paul and Becca, and my buddy Paul is a black guy, and he started a venture capital firm for minority-owned tech startups, and it was just announced. It's August 7th today. It was just announced yesterday, Friday, August 6th, that Best Buy is investing up to $10 million in their fund. So.
And that's money that they would use to help support startups for black-owned tech companies, right?
Yep. So, Brown Venture Group is my buddy Paul's company name. So Brown Venture Group has like 5 or 6 companies that have signed up with Brown Venture Group, and they have like let's just say a 2-year exclusive period. And so Paul's company, Brown Venture Group, went out and got the funding, and now they take these funds and then help these startups build into a corporation, a limited liability company, whatever, sole proprietorship, whatever works.
And so there's something in it for Best Buy then, if that company.
Yeah. So when these companies sign up with Brown Venture Group, they sign up to give away part of their company, like an ownership stake. So that when Best Buy or other companies invest with Brown Venture Group, they're getting an ownership stake in the startup company. Mm. So it is big risk, but it's also big reward. Mm-hmm. If these companies take off, Best Buy on their they said up to $10 million. So let's just say they invest $5 million. Mm-hmm. On their $5 million investment, they could make tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. So,
and kind of in the same vein, like, so Paul probably feels like, oh my God, like this actually worked. Yes. Now what?
Yep.
Now what? Now I got to actually deliver.
Right.
So he's probably existing in his own space of
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I won't say too much because I know a lot of behind the scenes info, and I don't want to put something out there that could get them in trouble if a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend
Sure.
got back to Best Buy or some other companies they're working with. But it's been a grind. Like
Yeah.
I've watched Paul put in 14, 16-hour days meeting after meeting with people and trying to explain it, and I've seen all the delays that happen, so I know he was struggling the last few months, just like we're so close. We're so close, and there's just this roadblock and then this roadblock, and you're like, like you can see the finish line, and then there's just like these little hills pop up, and it's not enough to deter you, but you're just like, I've already run 100 miles. I don't want to run up a little hill for mile 101. So yeah, to get that sense of relief, like, okay, like we have a Fortune 500 company that has now gone public, that they're investing with us, and now that makes other big companies more comfortable.
Well, it makes them look good because
Yep.
they're investing in DEI stuff.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, see, successes and victories, like what do we do with them
Right.
when we get them?
Yep.
You know, I had a couple little minor victories this week
Sure.
that in my brain I was like, "Oh my god, like this isn't going to work." This
Sure.
is and then somehow it worked.
Yep.
And so it made me look good.
Yep.
And so I don't know why we're always surprised when
Right.
when good things happen, because you know, if you put in the effort and if you're consistent, then it should be something that you kind of expect,
Yeah.
right?
I think that's the challenging thing with having mental health issues, though, is you get so focused inwards, and even if things are going right externally, they're not necessarily going right internally. So it just creates it creates an expectation of, my life is always going to be frustrating, it's always going to be difficult, it's always going to be stupid, and then sometimes whatever's going on outside of yourself, inside you're creating your own met expectations of, well, of course it's stupid, of course it's frustrating, of course it's depressing, and all that. And so it's, I was talking to you before we started recording that I'm trying to get to that point now where when something does come up, I'm like, okay, just remember, they've done a good job, like my company, like they've done a good job. They're interested in training. They're interested in a good culture. So even if I do something wrong, it's not like I'm going to be treated like a piece of crap who's an idiot and then they're just going to fire. Like, instead of taking that toxic route, they're going to take the route of, okay, it was a mistake. Let's figure out why it happened. Let's go through the steps of how to avoid it in the future, and then just move on.
Right.
And
it sounds very supportive.
Yeah. And so it is just this, like, you're having to relearn your entire way of processing the world. Like, my entire way of processing office jobs is everybody's looking to blame everybody else, and because I'm the new guy and the least experienced, they're going to blame me, and
You're
I'm
the
going to
fall
fail.
guy. Yeah.
Yep. And now I'm in a position where that's not the case, so I'm having to take the 3.5 years of purchasing or supply chain experience that I have of being blamed and not being supported, and I have to relearn how to think about my job performance and my capability in achieving whatever task I'm given. And you just, it's a lot of energy to, okay, calm down, Dustin. It's not going to be the end of the world this time. It was in the past, and you have to acknowledge that, because there's a reason that I'm anxious about it, but that's not the way it is at here. So take a couple deep breaths, repeat some truths to yourself about how they are supportive and they have a good culture, and then just take that first step to try and solve a problem or to remedy an error that you did make. And you made an error in such is life. Everybody does. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like growth.
Yeah.
Rational thinking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, we talked a little bit before we started formally today about the the making things reality. If you keep thinking and keep thinking and keep thinking, something's going to happen. And sometimes you just kind of end up making it happen.
Right.
Which is a scary place to be, and it's a circuit and a loop of thought that is not healthy. So I guess my question is why can't we do that with an expectation of success, right?
Yeah.
So for people like you and I who tend to kind of be mired in, the worst is going to happen because of past triggers.
Yep.
It sounds like, just with this example you gave, it sounds like you're starting to recognize, well, maybe I can turn this around on itself.
Yeah.
And I can start maybe thinking that good things are going to happen.
Yep.
Which takes practice.
Yeah.
It's not something that's easy to do for people like us or other people that might be listening.
Right. It takes practice and it takes a lot of energy, too.
Oh, I bet you've been exhausted this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Like, it's a good type of exhausted, though, because I used to be exhausted from just, like, fighting through each day. Like, each day was just, like, a pure survival instinct. And now I've, like, graduated from that to trying to fight the old negative thoughts and emotions and feelings and fighting for, like, recognizing peace of mind and contentment and all that. I'd much rather, like, I hated expending energy on survival.
Mm-hmm.
I am much more willing to invest my energy in contentment and peace of mind. So I am tired, but it's worth it. Like, before it was just like, oh, another fucking day where I just barely survived and this is stupid and pointless and everything becomes bleak and your world is colored in blacks and dark thoughts. And now I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll invest some energy in changing my thought process because there's a light at the end of the tunnel that I can legitimately see, and I can the payoff is I have a peace of mind. I'm content. I don't have as much anxiety. I don't have as much stress. Yeah, I'll invest energy in that for sure.
Yeah, light seems to be more of a, as growing beings,
Yeah.
seems to be the place that we should be.
Yeah.
Because nothing really grows in the dark.
Right.
But it's sad that a lot of us, and maybe our listeners, the darkness sometimes is a familiar place to be because we can't see ourselves and we can't necessarily see the world because we're in the darkness.
Yep.
And then you step into the light and it's like, whoa, so this is what this looks like. And so I think, from a biblical kind of perspective, just the symbolism of light and dark.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
It's kind of a big deal, awareness versus unawareness, and growth versus stagnancy, and contentment versus anxiety, all these different things. It's like, well, wait, we were God created to sort of live in the light, not unlike a flower or a tree, or so we can grow and flourish and have deep roots and be of good service to those around us and be a thing of beauty for those around us versus something that is just sort of kind of, imprisoned in darkness, which, and going into the darkness to get people, it's scary too, And I think some of, like myself, I've had my share of darkness, depending on the day.
Yeah.
And I just want somebody to come in there and get me, and don't say it's going to get better.
Right.
Oh, it'll get better.
Yeah.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
It's the worst thing you can say. It's like, oh, just, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right.
And it's like, no, I can barely function.
Yep.
I can barely return an email because I am so locked into my own, fear thoughts.
Yep.
That I don't need you to text me or say to me, oh, you'll be fine.
Right.
I don't know really what we need when we're in that place,
Yeah.
but we need something other than that.
Yeah, I've because of my own mental health struggles, I've thought about that a lot, and I think there is definitely power in if somebody's in a dark place speaking truth to that. But I hate when it comes across as cliched or dismissive. The simple, oh, it'll get better. You'll be
Dismissive
fine.
is, yeah.
It's just like, well, how do you fucking know that? So it's like I'm trying to get to a point where if I have some friends or family that are struggling with something, it's like give them something concrete to hold on to.
Or even just listen.
Yes, listening
Like you
is
can
just,
tell, because you mentioned dismissive.
Yeah.
I think that when we're in the darkness, we just need somebody that we feel safe with, that we could say, this is where I'm coming from, and
Yep.
you're not going to make me feel shame or weird for saying that these are the thoughts that I have, however irrational they may be.
you know,
You're going to take an active interest and listen and show some enthusiasm, even though it may not be pleasant, right?
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I think because I don't ever want to get to a point where I just let somebody wallow in their own shit and just be like, well, you got to figure it out on your own because everybody like needs help sometimes. But then we were talking before we were recording that I also don't want to be that type of person that let's say that my job continues to get better and I get to a point where I am comfortable with a supply chain office job and I'm good at it and I'm enjoy it. I don't want to get to a point where I'm like, oh, you were struggling and I was struggling and it got better for me, so it will
Get better for you.
Like I can't promise that. So I want to like find that right balance of helping somebody see the positives while also acknowledging that their struggles are real. And not be dismissive about it. Not just be like, oh, it'll be fine. Like I don't want if my life is turning around and getting better when I'm helping other people in the future, I don't want to just go, oh well, it worked out for me, so it'll work out for you. There's no guarantees in life.
You know, it's so important, you know, in terms of being a fist-standing Christian and just somebody who wants to go into the darkness to help other people I can think of an example of there's a time I was actually out here in the feeling shed and I was really struggling with some repetitive sort of anxious thoughts. And I called two people. Okay. First person I reached out to is dismissive and it wasn't substantive. It was just... Sure. You could tell that they were probably busy in the moment.
Sure.
And then the second person I called, actually out of state, he was at work. He dropped everything he was doing and he listened for a good 45 minutes.
Oh, wow. And
then he gave some thoughts, you know, some rational, like forest through the trees. Yeah. And it was a complete departure from the previous exchange. And so you know it. When you get it, you know it, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not like fix it for me, but just here's where I'm coming from, and maybe a couple well-placed confirmations, or even maybe just maybe you should try this, or you know what, DJ, I hear where you're coming from, but I feel like you might be blowing this out of proportion.
Sure.
Maybe try to do that, right? Yeah. Do you need me to get on a plane and come up there?
Sure.
You know, holy crap, like, wow.
Yeah.
So somebody brings their light into your darkness, and it's not bright, but at least you see some shadow, you know, something is there trying to pull you out. And I just think that's important. I think that's kind of the basis of Fist-Dented is, you know, we go into, we all at some point or another are in the darkness, but, you know, I guess I don't want Fist-Dented to be like, let's just sit in the darkness.
Right.
Let's bring in, we want to relate to each other in the darkness because this is not sometimes a great place to be.
Right.
But we also recognize that we want to step out into the light. You even said it yourself during this episode, is God, this feels kind of nice. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I need to start investing more time and energy into these. Doesn't mean, I mean, we were talking about light and dark as it relates to Scripture.
Yeah.
It's a universal law. It's
Right.
not, darkness isn't going away. Not
Right.
in your life and not in mine and
Right.
not in any of our listeners.
Right.
And this is the dance that is our lives, right? I hope the dance that is my life is a little bit more focused in the light.
Right.
Because we've all been there. So, anyhow.
Yep. Yeah, it is like I talk to my family and my friends about it, and there's like I don't really know what to say other than it's starting to get good.
Mm-hmm.
And
your family and friends, myself included, are like, good job. Like, you deserve it.
Yeah.
Because you do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is like it yeah, I you can tell right now I don't know what to say about it other than it's a
kind of a speechless
situation.
situation.
Just like I just keep saying it's good. It's good. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's just so new and all that. Like, I can talk endlessly about darkness and struggles and all that.
But when it comes to, like, contentment and peace of mind, and
it's a whole new world.
What do I say?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
And maybe we should just leave it at that.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
All right.
Cool. All right, well, everyone, thanks for listening and joining us as always. Hopefully your lives are starting to turn around, and if they're not, reach out to someone, find someone to talk with, and find someone that's not dismissive, that'll actually listen and help out. And if you're in a good spot and you're listening to this, just maybe be that person for someone that can listen to them for 45 minutes and then offer just a few thoughts instead of listening for 2 minutes and then offering too many thoughts.
Yeah.
So,
or just texting.
Yeah.
It'll get better.
Right. Yep. So, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.